Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Allow me to interrupt your train of thought with something that may be one of the most interesting things you hear today. This is Marianne-pestana, and our special guest today is dr-foojan-zeine, and she's here to share with us her new book, Life Reset: The Awareness Integration Path to Create the Life You Want. Now, many of you know Dr. Foojan. She is a great host. She's also a psychotherapist, life coach, international speaker, author, and media personality. She has her doctorate in clinical psychology and is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She practices online therapy and coaching and sees clients in Beverly Hills and San Clemente, California. She has extensive experience treating individuals and couples to restore their intimate relationships, addictive disorders, depression, anxiety, trauma, and domestic violence. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Foojan.
Hi, it's nice to be with you.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here. You're actually one of my favorite show hosts. I love your show, and I'm so excited we get to do this.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that we're on the same house, actually. We're housemates now. We're radio mates.
You know what? What a great place to be, right?
Yes, I love it here. So whomever's listening in ABC, I love it here.
Yes, I do too. And I'm so excited we get to talk about your book today and your story. I mean, that's so empowering. And there are parts of it that just pull at your heart, and other parts it's like, oh my gosh, you're just such a brave woman. I mean, you really kind of have blazed a trail for many people.
Thank you. Yeah, I came here to the U.S. At age 12, kind of alone, and then raised myself. So there were a lot of issues, which I had a lot of trauma in the childhood. And obviously I was from a divorced family and immigrant at very young age and had to figure it all out. So by age 30, I was like, okay, I thought I had everything and I survived it and I got it and all of that. And how come I'm just miserable? How come I'm unhappy? How come I constantly sabotage myself? And that started me to go to therapy. And, I loved it. It was almost like the first time. My first therapist was a male, and it was the first time that a male was actually listening to me, wasn't using me or abusing me, was nurturing, was really nice and sweet and could hear me. And it was like, oh, there's something here with this therapy stuff. I like it. And then side by side, I went to all of the self progress courses of really looking at who I was and what were my vulnerabilities and how I needed to heal myself. And then, obviously I went back to graduate school to become a therapist. And I took almost every theory that was out there. If they created a theory, I wanted to be the first to learn from it. I went to and became clients to those type of therapists. So I could not only learn the theory, but also learn what it felt like to be a client for that theory and intervention. And then I really saw that there are greatness in each one of the theory because they came at it from that angle. Like all the cognitive theories came, looking at changing thoughts and, looking at the thought process and to shift that. And then obviously then other pieces would shift. Emotional therapies would look at the emotions, behaviorals, the same as behaviors, and body and mind would look at, shifting the body in order to heal. And then, I had a lot of trauma clients. So I learned how to do trauma and deep work. And I saw there's this piece in there that we have a lot of core beliefs. We create a lot of negative and positive core beliefs, and the positive ones becomes our strength, and the negative ones obviously become our vulnerabilities. And throughout all of these therapy modules, I just couldn't find anything that would dismantle these kind of negative core beliefs. So I kind of zoomed into seeing what was the pieces that were missing and what did I do in my therapy sessions with clients as I was able to do that. And out of all of that, the awareness integration model got created, where we do look at an awareness. Like, awareness is one of those things that we as a human being have the ability to turn around, look at ourselves, modify, and kind of like hold a camera, which other animals don't have that skill. But as we grow up, they don't teach us how to put that camera on. So I figured, all right, let's put the camera on and teach the clients in how to kind of like monitor and distinguish between their thought process, emotional process, behaviors, and how they impacted the world and their world around, and what type of results they created for themselves. And then created a process of how to go back when we find those negative belief systems and kind of dismantle it, kind of heal it, go back and nurture the self and bridge the strong part of ourselves that has survived and learned all these skills to the vulnerable side, and create a wholeness inside versus, the term inner child, which each one of us is running around with 10 of them around. It's like, it's not necessarily to walk around with 10 different states of inner child. They all, if I'm 59 years old at this age, all of me should be 59 years old. I don't need to hang out with a 5-year-old of me and a 10-year-old of me and a 15-year-old of me. So created a process of bringing, kind of like growing up all of those stages of the ego stages that were there, connecting them together and becoming whole. So, and therefore that the thought, the emotion, and behavior could be aligned and not be sabotaged by other parts, so that we can make decisions on integrity and then create our future, in a sense, and then how to envision the future and create a structure to create the future that I know all of us deserve to have and want to create. And that's how then Life Reset was written out of this model, the awareness integration model. And it was written as a self-help book so that people can just go through the exercises and journal for themselves and look at all of those parts and be able to go through every area of their life, whether it's relationship with people, with money, career, their parents, their body, their illnesses, anything, all these areas of life, and kind of clean up for themselves so that they can unify themselves in that way. And Life Reset allows you to go through and pick up the skills, so the skills are really yours. And then, Marianne, what we did was, after I published Life Reset, we went to Cal State Long Beach, and in 4 classes, 2 instructors gave them modules, gave these chapters to their students. So now we were researching on the students, let's say like age 18 to 24, and which have the highest level of depression and anxiety. And it was amazing, astonishing. With no therapy, we minimized depression about 64% and anxiety 43%, which are astonishing results with no therapy at all. So this was just self-help, for them doing their own work and journaling. And through that, as I'm going around and, talking to people and doing groups and workshops, we see how much it's having an effect because I brought the best out of a lot of the different theories that were there and put it in a follow through, like a structure that they can just go from A to B to Z and then, really have that effect on themselves.
Do you feel that your younger years here in the US really kind of gave you this unique perspective that you can look at the awareness integration journey in a way that, and bring that together in a way that's really helping more people than what we currently have?
I think that coming to US at an early age and coming alone, I had to put on my observational gears and really learn. I had to learn a new language. I had to learn a new culture. And it was a beautiful culture that was actually holding and accepting me. I went to Arizona to a boarding school. And then from there, I went to Arizona State University. And I was 15 when I graduated and I went to ASU. And it was interesting because at age 15, nobody can, at this age, at this time, I'm sorry, at this era, you can't at age 15 go get an apartment on your own name and have your own, bank account on your own and all of that. And when I came to go to ASU, my dormitory was all sold out. So I couldn't get in. So I went and I'm like, okay, I have a passport. I had a check that I came back from Iran with out of the summer vacation, and then came back and I said, okay, well, we can't go take you into the dorm. And I said, well, what am I going to do? And I remember there was a Howard Johnson hotel beside ASU. So I went in there and I'm telling them my story, and they're like, well, you're 15. We can't let you in. And I'm like, well, what can I do? I mean, I can't sleep on the street. And they're like, okay, well, we'll do this exception to the rule and you can come in. So I stayed there until I found an apartment, and they're like, well, you can't sign a lease because you're 15. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I don't have anybody else. And they're like, okay, we'll make the exceptions to the rule. And then the management, it was a mother and a son, and they would come with me and they take me like to Kmart and Walmart and those places and buy stuff with me. And just kind of like, it was more like, putting yourself out there and having these amazing people just take your hand and move you along. And it was amazing that I thought it's really interesting that when I was under the cover and under the protection of my own family, I was abused in many, many layers by different people. And then I was in completely a different country on my own as a teenage girl. And it was almost like I put my trust in the world, and the world was coming through. And one by one, people just kept helping. And here I am. Here I am because everybody helps each other. And I think that maybe I started finding people who could help me, and then kind of like I had the knowledge of who to get away with from and not let myself be abused again. But it also created this part of allowing the trust and allowing kind of like love and connection for growth to come to me and for me with others. And I think that's probably what also took me to want to heal myself, and then take that healing and kind of like, give it to other therapists to be able to do that, or give it to other people to be able to do that. I think that's how it affected me, to allow me to experience my individualism and experience the experience of growing up and with great people.
Well, you definitely are an overachiever. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I look at me when I was 15 and it was like, okay, I was running around playing, running cross country, doing something, but not thinking about what would it be like to be on my own. And I just have to applaud you because, your courage at doing that at such a young age, it's just so inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that every one of us has the essence inside to grow, and that has the essence of creating a healthy place for us. All of us don't have the luxury of being born and raised in a safe and happy, let's say, family, cultures, countries. We don't. There are a lot of people who are born in families who abuse them, or born in a time of war. So I think that we can't say who we're going to be born to and where and how. But I think that there is a way that we can take control in how we perceive the world, how we choose to make decisions, and what we could do for ourselves. And, you see a lot of, and you interview a lot of authors, and that many people go through hardship and they create resilience and they create, kind of like post-trauma growth versus the post-traumatic kind of like disorder and kind of get stuck. So I think every one of us has that. And it's more of, can we model that for each other and hold each other hand and show the path of, these are the ways that you just kind of like heal yourself, shake it all and move forward. And a lot of the underlying energy is truly like love. It's truly like love and acceptance and letting go of like that anger and resentment and kind of like the victimization stance that comes with that hopelessness, helplessness, and anger and resentment, and create the hope and create the skills so we're not helpless, and create also the distinctions of how can I assess appropriate situations and how can I assess what type of skills I need in order to move forward in life, in a sense.
Well, that's so empowering because so many people just do not have the life skills needed to move forward. And a lot of times they end up getting stuck. They repeat cycles. You talked about people that, get into victimization mode. And a lot of times they need someone to kind of go, hey, okay, let's work on that. Let's figure this out.
Yeah, there's a in the model, what I created is to see that we all have, Marianne, a way that we perceive the world. So there's a way that we think about the world, about how we feel about the world. And based on those thought process, the perception, the belief systems we create, the emotions we have, the needs and desires, we create obviously a behavior toward, other people and toward the world. And then that obviously that way of thinking and feeling and that way of behaving creates a result, creates an impact in all of these relationships. Then there is also side by side a way that every human being is living in their own projections. Like I would immediately have a projection of how does Marianne think about me? How does she feel about me? And based on my assumption of how other people would think and feel about me, then I would react. I have a reactory behavior, let's say. And sometimes we don't check. We just assume and we live based on our assumptions consistently. And that has an impact. And then side by side, these two way of relating, we kind of take ourselves everywhere. So I also have a way that I think about myself and feel about myself and kind of like either nurture myself or scold myself, punish myself, any of those. And so these three way of relatedness, my relation to the world, my assumption of how the world relates to me and how I relate to myself, they're consistently with us. That's part of the processing. So if we become aware of these pieces, which becomes like kind of 12 questions you ask yourself, when you relate to anybody or even relate to things such as sexuality or money or death or things that are not people, but they're conditions or circumstances that we're constantly deal with. And dealing with them, it makes us deal with people. But we live in relationships all the time. And so the way we are is constantly relating to things in these three ways of us to them, assumption of them to us, and then us to us. The awareness of these kind of like 12 pieces really opens us to our own dualities of how much we sometimes live off reality, how much dualities we have, that one part wants something, another part wants something else, or I say I want this, but I act another way. So awareness of that duality that we have keeps us in a place that maybe we could come back and kind of like renegotiate different parts of us and come back and make sure that we are a whole, we are on integrity when and all parts of me are being taken care of as I relate to others and as I behave a particular way. And then when I'm aware of this, every time that I intend something and don't create it or the result isn't the same, then I can go back and look at which one of these areas wasn't matching or it didn't work out, and now what do I do? How do I want it to be? How can I be proactive now in creating another result? So it really puts us in a driver's seat. And it minimizes, well, I could say kind of like regulates our emotion, and it minimizes us creating drama constantly for ourselves. And the energy that is not wasted on creating drama and conflict, the energy is then spent on solution. So it's constantly, you're looking at reality out there, checking it inside, kind of co-creating something with what is really real out there. And, you create a result, you check that again. What part of this, I can shift, what part I have control, what I don't, come back. So your energy is really spent on moving forward and creating and manifesting versus stagnation and blame and, dramas and anger and frustration. Now, I don't mean that we don't have, as human being, all range of emotions, and I think they're all healthy to have. It's just that where do you kind of like live? Where do you spend a lot of energy? So we don't have control over the thought process that shows up. I don't have control over the emotion that shows up, but I certainly have a control over which one I spend time in. So out of, 10 thoughts that show up all at the same time, which one of these thoughts I would say, yeah, hear you, but bye-bye. Yeah, no, yeah, I don't want this. Oh, this thought, I want to kind of like spend time. I'm going to commit myself into that. Or emotions show up. Oh, hear you. Nice. Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, this one. Oh, this one, this emotion, I want to kind of like hang in there and experience it more. So you really become the driver. You're in the driver's seat and the driver of like your body, your emotion, your thought process, your co-creation with the world out there and with others.
So is that what makes awareness integration unique? Is that combination of really being aware and getting in touch with these emotions and then also working on the core?
Yes. I don't know any other therapeutic model that really takes you and gives you the tools to consistently be aware. So this model also gives you a lot of independence. Like you got the tool, you can move on and do it. And then it has the component of to go deep and kind of like heal thyself in a way. So it's almost like deep therapy very quickly and efficiently. And then it has the next phase of visioning the future and moving forward and creating principles for yourself and how to live by those principles that you say you will, how to align your thought process, emotion, and behavior with the principles that you set. So, for example, if a principle I chose would be to be kind to people, to be loving, then I would monitor myself consistently. Like I right now I'm working on being very loving, even if I don't like people, like being loving and mean it, like really mean loving them. And obviously, I'm sure everybody who's listening to us have had that experience that the minute you say something like that, like we say that God tricks you now. It's like, oh yeah, that's what you want to do. I'll show you all the ways you're not, because you become aware of it. Like, so the minute I say I want to be loving, all the ways that I'm not loving is right in my face.
Oh boy.
Right. So then I'm sitting there with my husband and I'm talking, he said something and then I started with this concept of stereotyping a group. And I was at it, like, I think they are this. And I was going at it and I just stopped. It was very funny. And 2 minutes later, I'm looking at him like, now that was disgusting. I look at myself like, did you say you wanted to be loving with the higher vibration of love and this and that? And even if you don't like something as a behavior that somebody did, but you still want to be loving. And what you just did, 5 minutes of bashing in a stereotype way, that was disgusting. And then immediately it's like, okay, I apologize. I apologize to everyone in my mind that I ever said that. But it's that type of a cleaning up, that you create a principle for yourself. And you're the only one who's responsible for it and accountable for it. So it's that piece. And then I told my husband, I said, that I said those things. And he said, yeah, I know, we were part of conversation. And I said, I apologize that I kind of like poison your ear with that. And then I realized that that was just disgusting. And I caught myself in that. So it's not like, okay, this is a principle I say I want to live in. I'm going to catch all the ways that I'm not, because I'm a human being with all those dualities. How can I catch myself, clean up with me and all of that, and kind of like move on? So then this part of living intentionally with principle, creating relational, aspect with others and moving forward, then also becomes part of your path, which, moves you into solution focused concepts and solution focused with aligning yourself with your principles, not solution focused in a way of, I'm going to land that regardless of who I am and what is. So that's why it makes the awareness integration model into a whole module of, having a very good skill of consistently being aware of yourself in the present moment. What you see comes from the past, cleaning it up, and then envisioning the future and looking at the, how to move forward in the future. So you've got present, past, and the future kind of all encompassing in this aspect.
I'm sure there are a lot of people right now thinking, okay, well, my ex, I can love everybody but them, or Uncle Louie, never liked him, so it's very, again, brave for you to go ahead and move forward with this, because it just shows at not only what level that you're at to be able to pursue such an endeavor, because most people get really stuck with that. They get stuck in resentments, hates, and fears.
And I'm stuck sometimes in it, and I think that I was stuck in it, and I am stuck sometimes. But I think that the awareness is helps you to get unstuck, and just become truthful, like honest with yourself. This is one of those things where you get to be honest with you, and you don't need to shame yourself or badmouth yourself or any of it. Like, even when I was doing that, it wasn't like I'm disgusting. I was just like, that's disgusting. That way of speaking is disgusting. And I think that being honest with ourselves in that way makes life much easier. Life can be hard as it is. Like, I don't need to add drama and stuff in my head over it. If the more I keep this clean, my head clean and my way of being clean, then I can deal with life's stuff. Like pandemic showed up and it created issues for every one of us on the planet Earth. This wasn't something that was our fault. It just happened and we needed to deal with it. But I watch how people have dealt with it throughout this, year and so. And it's like people who can be clean in their internal process and they're not constantly fighting with themselves, can move around to handle what's happening outside, flow, and kind of, as I said, co-create with whatever is happening out there in the world. The ones who were struggling got rigid, fears went up. All of these issues that was on top of now handling the pandemic was all coming up. So it was more like, okay, yes, these are opportunities that we could clean those up. But there's more you clean the internal process of the dualities and, what we do with ourselves and the belief systems that we uphold, that they're no longer workable. And when we clean those up, life becomes much more at ease, because then we could flow with whatever shows up, versus at every corner, as life puts something in front of us, we get stuck in it and we're resisting and we're going back and forth. It's like what you said, like Uncle Louie can be Uncle Louie. Okay. But, do I need to, can I create a workable relationship that either works for me, or I could choose not to have a relationship? Or if I say I've got to have a relationship, then how can I create the relationship that kind of like works for both of us in a sense? And mostly for me, where I don't suffer when I'm with Uncle or when I'm away. And that's the flow. Like, it's not about how am I going to change the uncle to be somebody else, because I can't. But how can I flow with whatever it is so that I can be okay with it. Most people with uncle would be like, well, he doesn't have the right to be that, or he needs to be somebody else, or he shouldn't be doing that. And that's where we get into the struggle, because we're not accepting reality as is. We're constantly resisting it. It's not like we're co-creating something with it. We get stuck in resisting it. And that's where the awareness piece shows up and is like, okay, let's see how I'm relating to the world. What are my assumptions about the world? And then, how come I'm getting so triggered? Is this, uncle did this something to me, or something happened, and then I can clean that up. And then who do I intend to be? And with that way of being, now how do I want to deal with, Uncle Louis? So that's how the process kind of goes.
So all the Uncle Louis out there are getting a bad rap right now. But you know what? I love how you bring this together, because it really is about a personal responsibility of our journey, and to really look at, we've got so many people that are going, gosh, during this time, we haven't been able to go outside. Let's dive inward and work on the things that I can work on myself. And you really provide the way for people to do that in a way that I feel was like really easy. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy all the time, but it's like the process is easy to understand and follow.
Yes. And you said it many times, when we have to face our own dualities, or we have to face, the abuse of the past and the things that have happened to us that it shouldn't have happened, and releasing, the traumas of the past, and all of that. Many times it's not easy, but it's there. So you're not adding anything to it. It's just there, something that you avoided, something you're pushing down, something that is sucking energy from you inside. And all we're doing is like opening the door and saying, come on out, and obviously at the time of coming out of, the pain is there, and the crying is there, and all of that there. But it's a releasing mechanism at that point. And then this needs to come out. It's almost, like like you go and do an operation, and you recovery also hurts. It's not just that the pain before hurts, the recovery hurts. But we know the distinction between, a pain that is of a recovery, or a pain that is of an illness. And we know that the pain of the recovery, it's healing pain, and it's moving forward, and it's an end to it. That, there's light on the other side of the pain and the tunnel, so we can move toward it. But there's not a promise that this thing is as easy and flowing that I share with you with a smile on my face. But the smile is on my face because I know what happens at the end. I've worked 30 years with clients, and the funny part was that when, I'm working with my clients, I'm giving them all that I can. And there was still some clients which we did everything, but the core belief wasn't lifting off. And until I got kind of created the awareness integration, and then I started doing this with my own clients, and then it started giving the good result. And I was like, so it is the model. It isn't just, okay, sometimes you say, all right, it's because of you or the therapist that is doing this. And if they go into another therapist, wouldn't happen. But these were my clients who I was using other interventions with them. And when I did this intervention, suddenly it all worked. So I know that throughout the years that we've done this, that it works. And then I was astonished when it also kind of worked without me having to do anything with it. I wasn't part of the research. I wasn't doing therapy. And this was written in a book and given to people. And still, in the universities, as the results shows, then I was really happy because I knew it wasn't the self-fulfilling prophecy, that it was really something that was working out there.
Well, and it's so interesting when you get to like the core of an issue. I think a lot of times people, they look at this, they're like, well, how do I even track this, much less release it,
Exactly. You said it. Like, people don't necessarily have the path. And even when we go to therapy, we kind of like let the therapist do the work, and we're in this process. And then when sometimes we come out, we don't know what happened. We know there's some healing, but we have no idea what happened that we got there. And this model kind of gives you the tools. You have it, like you have it in your shed. I remember, Marianne, I had one client, which, like clients come in, sit down like 10 minutes before I bring them in, like in the lobby. So as I opened the door and she came in, she says, well, let me tell you, I'm done with therapy today. I'm like, you just came in. She said, yeah, but this was my issue. I asked this in the 10 minutes that I was sitting over there. I did this with myself. I asked this with myself. Then I saw, I went to the first memory where I made this belief system. Then I reintegrated it. I said these things to myself and I figured, okay, these are my principles and intentions. And this is how I'm going to be with this person tomorrow. And these are the things I'm going to set up as a structure. So I'm done. I don't need to be here today. So I loved it that people actually now have the tool and they don't have to go consistently to their therapist, or, they can. And I love it. And I'm not, I love my business and I hope that I have clients until the day I die. And so I'm not saying people don't need therapists, but there's things you could do on your own. And obviously there are things you can't do on your own. And you definitely need a therapist. You can't do surgery on yourself. So you do need the professionals to do, deep stuff with you. And we do need therapists and coaches so that there can be a great mirror for us. But it is also that you don't have to only be dependent on another person for your healing, that you have the tools to also be able to do that.
That is so impressive. That just talks about how well a job you're doing if they show up and they're like, okay, I think I'm good now. I'm going to go, Oh my goodness. But that's great. I think people love hearing that because they're like, you know what, I can, because I'm sure that you are as busy gets. So I'm sure people are like, okay, well, I can't go to California and have appointments with her, but I could get the book, so I have a way to start working on myself.
Yes, you can get Life Reset, the awareness integration path to the life you want. It's on Amazon or any of the bookstores online. I do coaching across the world. If they need to work with me specifically via, any of the Zoom or any of the spaces that we could do visual together from anywhere in the world. I do psychotherapy in the state of California. I do life coaching or anywhere else in the world. And the book itself puts them aside. I've also had people who take the book and they work on it in the middle of the week, and we work on deepening it into the therapy sessions in the areas that's kind of like a shadow side. Like, we don't see the back of our own head many times unless we have a mirror. So sometimes they do that. They, work on it themselves, and then they go to the therapist to do. The next book is coming a couple of weeks from now, which is called Awareness Integration Therapy, which is a book that is written for the therapists and coaches and teachers to be able to kind of know how to do that. And I'm certifying therapists in this model and coaches in this model. Oh, Marianne, I don't know how much time we have.
We got time.
Okay. Okay. One of a great friend who asked me to kind of like monitor her while she was doing this therapy on herself. And she did a great job she was almost like suicidal, and she was very depressed. She had a great job, but she hated everything about it. And so she went through the whole process and lifted her depression. She went around the world at age 40. And, in 10 months, she went through 60 countries. And she just did not have a passion for, she was in a banking industry, high level banking industry, and she didn't have a passion. So she came back and said, I found my passion, and it's being with children. And I want to create a daycare and a system for them. And so she came back from her 10-month, going around the world alone, a 40-year-old girl with a phone, with an Apple phone and Google Map, went around the world. It was amazing. So she went to South Africa and, did volunteer with some of the daycares. And then she came back and said, I want to have my own daycare, and I want to bring awareness integration, since it worked for me and got me from like a suicidal ideation to really find my passion and move and go around the world. So this is what I want to bring to the children. And so it was interesting because obviously I did it I created it as a therapy, which is a lot of times a reflective of the past. And the awareness of it is like, okay, for a grown-up, you could go from like a teenager and up. And many of the studies we did had to do with almost like adults. So it was like, well, we have to take this theory and make it, instead of a reactional, a proactive one, where you actually building the camera for the child. So the child gets to learn how to become aware from a very early age. So we started creating the educational model of this, and we started with her daycare has infants as soon as like about 3 months, all the way to 6 years of age and 5 years of age, and so her first clients were a twin boy. So we started doing all of the research with the children that she has in her daycare. It's 6 years later today. We again have found astonishing results of how children can learn how to emotionally regulate themselves. And we're even talking about toddlers, which everybody says they're terrible too, and they can't, that's just part of them, cannot do that. The kids who are at her school, they're emotionally regulating themselves. And they're being aware, and they support each other. They're very loving. And when it comes to their academic sense, because a lot of the emotions are handled, their sense of openness to learning has gotten sky high. So as these kids are going and moving along and going to do tests to go to the first grade and preschool and first grade, they're all coming on a top level. So in the meantime, she also got her PhD in development, in child development and early child development. And so that also is another level of research that we're moving in, and we're shifting and taking this also into schools from daycare. I've talked to another group, which is 6 to K schooling, and we're going to try to go teach the therapists and teach the teachers the model so that they can bring this into the school systems. And hopefully, and I'm going to teach this model at Cal State Long Beach. Actually, I'm going to have a course at Cal State Long Beach as a mental health and mental wellness and being. So we're also taking it into academia from an educational place, as well as the therapeutic world.
Oh my goodness. All those young people are going to be so prepared for the world. And I love that, because having that as a life skill, that's just going to change their whole trajectory.
Very much, very much. Like most of us, we don't learn how to become aware. We kind of like live life in a subconscious way and just moving and looking at the world, not us. And, somewhere around 20s and 30s where we kind of like hit the wall in something we don't like, those are the first time we come back and kind of like reflect on the past and saying, what happened? How come? I did everything my mother and father told me, or I rebelled against them and did everything I should have done and what the society told me. And then, what happened? I'm at age 20 and 30 and, I'm hitting the wall. And those are the times we actually turn around and look at what happened. And I think that, if all of us as human beings have access to a methodology that we can be aware of ourselves, I think that would be great.
I just think that's so empowering. I can't wait to hear when the classes start at UC Long Beach. That's just such a great thing. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of, just teachers and professionals that are signing up for that to learn this skill.
Yes, I think that would be amazing for people to have that skill. And that's why the book Life Reset gives you the skills in that way. And then, as the model goes a little bit more mainstream into schools, classes, universities, So that's my hope. My hope is for people to get to know it, to utilize it, for 7.5 billion people on the face of the earth to at least have access to it. So, and how to use it and how to be with it. Because I do think we deserve to live in a happy state. Marianne, the state of the world keeps getting better in one way or another. Like you see a lot of the ratios and I'm not talking about if you look at the news, you think that the world is going to fold any minute. But when, Steven Pinker and a lot of those people in MIT, they did a research and looked at, the whole kind of like different leverage on Earth and how much it has changed since 25 years ago and how much everything has gotten better actually for all of us in humans for the past 25 years. But the rate of depression is double in some countries, 4 times. And unfortunately, after the pandemic, it tripled. So we don't deserve to be depressed or anxious. I mean, minimum, they're tools for us. If they're not clinical and chemically based, if they are psychologically based, we have tools to be able to release ourselves from it, and we don't have to suffer. So I hope that this helps people stop suffering.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Foojan. I mean, we could talk forever. I just loved your book. I love your work. Where can our listeners, I know you've talked about once, but why don't you share one more time where they can connect with you and learn about your work and be part of your community?
Sure. I'm found on Foojan.com, Foojan.com. If you like to get Life Reset, a book, you can get it, through my website, Foojan.com, or go to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, any of that online. I do have a show also on ABC. It's on Mondays at 3 p.m. Los Angeles time. So I love people to, also tune in. And I have, all my social media, all of them are out there. I have the podcast also. So all of those are available, whomever likes, to connect with me in any of those ways.
Well, I love your show and highly suggest people go check that out. Dr. Foojan, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. It was a joy to see you, to be with you, and all of your audience.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Foojan. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Life Reset. Life Reset's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, support our indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.